I'm going to say something that you're dying for someone to say, but you might not even know it. Here it is. Learning things in 90-second video boost is a ridiculous way to learn. It's not designed for your brain. It is designed to perpetuate the technical industrial complex in which these devices dictate how we think, talk, and concentrate. Think about all the things you've learned in your life that are of real value to you. Really valuable stuff. Did you learn any of them in 90-second email video boosts? It's a myth. I have bad news for you. This video is going to be longer than 90 seconds. It's going to be longer than 5 minutes. In fact, it is going to be a long video. It's going to take roughly 20 minutes. But I have good news too. If you take those 20 minutes, you're going to learn really cool stuff that can change your life. But it will take 20 minutes. You're going to have to repeatedly battle with your itchy trigger fingers impulse to click to something else or to multitask. In fact, you're probably battling that right now. And right now again, probably again, right now, again, it's happening again. Reclaim your attention span. It is an act of rebellion. Take 20 minutes, learn cool stuff. What cool stuff? 4 shuns, and then your health and your future. What are 4 shuns? What I mean by that is the ending of words that end in I-O-N-S. It's a suffix of Latin origin, and what it does is takes adjectives or verbs and turns them into jargony nouns. Here are the 4 shuns. Are you ready? Number 1, attention. Number 2, thought suppression. Number 3, distinction. Number 4, embodied cognition. And then we'll get to your health and your future. All those shuns are terrible writing, but it's good learning, and I'll tell you why. Let's start right now with attention. What do I mean by attention? Your ability to learn anything at all, is directly dependent on your ability to attend to things. In other words, to pay attention to things around you. Here's an example using little kids. When little kids are very, very small, it's really important for them to do something called tracking across the byline. So what that means is this. If you take your finger and you go like that, and the kid's eyes follow you, it means that they're processing the journey from this point to that. It takes a while for kids to be able to do that, get their eyes to track. When kids are first born, everything is just this giant wash of indistinguishable color. It takes some time to focus on that. And what that first moment is them having the attention span to watch a journey of something cross from here to here. And it turns out that anatomically, crossing this byline, the midpoint of our bodies, actually takes some time for the kid's brain to learn how to do that. What does that have to do with you? The more that you have built the muscle to actually attend to things over time, to continue to pay attention, the more complicated and cool and exciting stuff you can learn. Attention. Foster it, build it, honor it, hang on to it. It is a precious resource, and the world around you is making a bunch of demands on it and trying to yank your attention away from you. Grab it back. Reclaim your attention span. Second shun. Thought suppression. What do I mean by that? Thought suppression is simply this. Are you ready? No one in the world right now. Nobody. No one in this room, no one on the video, anywhere on the globe, nobody think about a sunflower. Could you do that? No, of course not. All that build up, all those don'ts, don't think about it. All you could focus on was the thing I was about to name, which was a sunflower. So you thought about a sunflower. I set you up for failure. That is called thought suppression. A colleague of mine at Columbia, a guy named Adam Galinsky, studies this, and it turns out humans are terrible at thought suppression. If you tell a bicyclist, don't hit that rock, do you think the bicyclist is more or less likely to hit the rock? More, exactly. What you've done in that moment of thought suppression is you've tried to tell your brain, don't do the thing it is obligated to do. Don't do the thing you're obligated to do. Don't do the thing you're obligated to do. So your brain has no choice. It has to fixate on that thing. It's your brain's job. In that moment, and now we'll shift to the third shun, distinction. In that moment, your brain's job is to distinguish between two things: a sunflower and the rest of the known universe. Because your brain's job is to distinguish sunflowers, non-sunflowers. You do this all day long. You can identify right now around you objects in the room or in the outside, if you're outside, that have certain colors, that have certain size, that are alive or not, that have certain characteristics. That is called distinction. You do it all day long without even thinking about it. When I say to you, don't think about a sunflower, distinction demands, it commands even, that you think about that sunflower. What does this have to do with you? Right now, you are probably, in this very moment, giving yourself some kind of a don't. Don't be stressed. Don't be nervous. Don't think about that big thing coming up. Don't be anxious about whatever event. All of these don'ts. And the more you tell your brain not to, it is obligated to do that thing. So give up on that. I'm not suggesting you can do that all the time. Lord knows I can't. There's lots of don'ts floating around in my head that I don't have much control over many days. But when it comes to trying to get better in a specific thing, don't use thought suppression. It doesn't work. Distinction, that third shun, obligates you. It obligates you to fixate on that thing. And so now that brings me to the fourth shun, which is embodied cognition. What the heck does that mean? That is the most jargony, technical, difficult language to understand you've said so far. Yes, that's true. It is. Embodied cognition, but it's a really important thing because it can change your life dramatically. All it means is this: you learn stuff by using your body. That's all it is. Embodied cognition. We mostly think that we learn everything up here. We process information, take it in, we learn that, we digest it, and then we can somehow use that information. That's true for some things, for sure. But if you look at how the nerve endings in a human body are actually distributed, we get a lot of information, not just from our eyes and our ears. We get a lot of information from the world around us in a lot of different ways. So the point here is that you can use embodied cognition to learn cool, useful stuff. What cool, useful stuff am I talking about? We're going to add a fifth shun right now, real time, to keep you engaged, because this is the hidden secret. We're now going to talk about communication, your communication. Very likely there are some things that you do that you don't like about how you communicate. Maybe you talk too fast. Maybe you say too many likes or ums. Maybe you always end sentences in an upward inflection, or you trail off all the time. Maybe you have some discomfort with eye contact. I don't know. There's a bunch of things you may not think are ideal. And it's very likely those same things you have in the past been focused on trying to change them with thought suppression. Don't say don't say don't say so much, don't say you're saying again. Shoot, stop saying Your brain is trapped in distinction right in that moment. So how can you use embodied cognition to improve your communication? I'm going to show you a few simple things right now that if you practice these things, will change how you communicate. And for many of you, will change things that you have been struggling for years, maybe even decades to change. We're going to address 3 simple things. 1, comfort with silence. Number 2, filler language, ums and uhs and things like that. And number 3, enunciation and diction. And at the end of that, we're going to talk about your health and your future. Let's start with comfort with silence. Now, for those of you who don't pause, you talk a mile a minute, you never pause. Why is pausing so hard? Is it because you don't know about it? No, you probably know you should pause. Is it because you're not aware that you don't do it? No, you probably know you don't pause either. It's because you've been trying to make a mental adjustment to what is ultimately a physical activity. The mental adjustment is you should pause more. The physical activity is I actually have to stop talking, moving my mouth and my tongue and my lips to make words. I actually have to breathe in. I have to find physical stillness. So if you know that you lack the ability to pause at sometimes, instead of trafficking and all that thought suppression, instead, I want you to try this. If you have these tools, grab them. Lego blocks or Post-it notes. If you have those, great. If you don't, doesn't matter, use your hand instead. The idea is this: you're going to share one thought at a time, just one. Not 3, not 5, not 15, one thought at a time. And at the end of every single thought, in essence, where the period might go at the end of the thought, you're going to place some kind of an object down. Best is the Lego blocks because they click into place, which is nice and satisfying. Second best is the Post-it notes because you can actually adhere them to the desk or table with the adhesive. Third best is your hand, but your hand still works. One thought at a time. At the end of the thought, in silence, you're going to put your hand or the Lego block or your Post-it note down. Now here's the key thing. That has to happen in silence, and you're not allowed to start the next thought until you're ready, at which point you pick the hand back up, or you pick up the next Lego, or you pick up the next Post-it note. Say the next idea, blah, 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 blah. At the end of that idea, in silence again, object goes down, hand or Lego or Post-it, in silence. When you're ready with your next thought, you'll pick up the hand, or pick up the next Lego, or pick up the next Post-it, and say the next thought. And I want you to practice that way over and over again. What you're about to do when you do this drill is you're about to unlock something I call the virtuous cycle of good communication. All that means is this: your content, meaning what you say, and your delivery, how you say it, they're linked, and they're linked in a virtuous cycle. And you can remember this for the rest of your life using embodied cognition right now. I want you to hold your hands up like the binoculars of an imaginary binocular set. You're looking through them like so. Do it with me if you don't mind. Now look at your left hand. Do you see how, and I'll do it from your view, you see how that looks like a capital letter C, and your right hand looks like a capital letter D? That stands for content and delivery. Content is what you say, the words you actually choose. Delivery is how you say those words. Tone of voice, vocal variety, things like that. Those two things are linked in a virtuous and also a vicious cycle. Now everyone knows, by the way, it's pretty boring stuff right now, you're thinking, right? 20 minutes of this? Everyone knows that content is linked to delivery, meaning if you know what you're talking about, you can say it with good eye contact and lots of vocal variety. Everyone knows that. But what not everyone knows is that this virtuous cycle drives in the other direction too. Meaning if you just deliver it better, not only will it sound better, but you will actually think of smarter stuff to say. And the drill that I just explained to you will help you unlock that. In that moment when you put your hand or that Lego block or Post-it note down, your brain gets to do something totally magical. Think about what it should say next. Well, now you say a smart thing. It feels good to say smart stuff. So you're more comfortable breathing a little bit and owning your space. You breathe in, whoa, I just paused again. And in that pause, guess what you can do? Think more. So that little activity of physically enforcing pauses into what you're doing can magically unlock a much smarter bit of speaking, whatever it might be. You'll say smarter stuff. How about the next one? Let's talk about filler language. Filler language, folks, is not a problem. It's not a capital P problem. I will say that one more time. It's not a capital P problem. It's a symptom. It's a symptom of you not being in as much command of what you're saying as you could be. And filler language, by the way, you might be hung up on it. Many people around you are not. You might notice it much more than they do. In fact, you can even think about filler language existing on a hockey stick graph of exponential growth, meaning it's not really a problem until it is. And this boundary, by the way, this boundary is actually pretty forgiving. So you may be more hung up on it than other people. But regardless, let's say you are or not, how can you make your filler language less problematic or even less symptomatic? Let me ask you, would it work to say, don't say, no, that's thought suppression. Would it work instead to put your focus very deliberately and very specifically and very precisely on all the words that happen instead of that Yes. How do you do that? Well, again, we're going to use embodied cognition. And what I'm going to ask you to do for this drill is the following. All you're going to do is walk your fingers across the table or desk in front of you. Every single finger step has to be placed very specifically and very deliberately on the table. As you do that, choose your language. Choose each and every single word as specifically as you place your fingers. If you don't know what to say next, pause until you do. Why does this work? It brings your focus to what you're actually trying to say as opposed to what you're trying to avoid. And it increases what I call linguistic precision, meaning you are precise with what you're saying. The third thing to focus on is enunciation and diction. Now, we could even call those shuns, couldn't we? Enunciation and diction. What does that mean? Speaking clearly, of course. If you have challenges at times with enunciation or diction, instead of thinking about these sorts of mantras, slow down, speak up, say your words clearly, which, by the way, doesn't work. Why? Because it's a mental adjustment for what is ultimately a physical activity. Speaking is a highly physical activity. I take air into my lungs, my diaphragm drops down to allow that to happen. The lungs fill with air. When they do, then that air can be pushed past my vocal folds right here, my vocal cords, which creates a small sound. That sound then amplifies throughout my entire body. My tongue and jaw and mouth and lips move in a miraculous act of coordination to shape that raw sound into words and letters. My eyes look at you to see if you're comprehending what I'm saying. My gestures illustrate points to give certain ones more impact. It's a physical activity. Telling yourself to speak up, to enunciate more clearly won't work. That's a mental instruction for a physical activity. You would never give yourself a mental adjustment for a physical activity in other walks of life. You would never tell yourself to have a better golf swing, or tell yourself to have a cleaner, smoother release on your basketball shot, or tell yourself to have a calmer approach to your yogi practice. You would do those things and you would build muscle memory. And the same is true of speech. If you know of yourself that you mumble or you have difficulty with enunciation sometimes, practice using an impediment. The principle goes way back to ancient Greece, and probably way before that, but ancient Greece with Herodotus was the first time it was written down, the idea of using an impediment to speak more clearly. I learned this principle from the head of voice and speech at the Royal Shakespeare Company, who was at this time teaching at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, actually, a guy named Andrew Wade. He's awesome. Check him out if you want. But I've adapted it in a small way, and that is this. People can be quite self-conscious about using pens or little implements to put into their mouth. So instead, I want to give you the idea of an implement that you're quite comfortable doing that with, the humble toothbrush. Here's how it works. If you have struggles with enunciation or diction, instead of telling yourself to be better, just practice speaking 2 times every day, in the morning and in the evening when you brush your teeth. Spend 30 seconds after you spit the toothpaste out, endeavoring to speak as clearly as you possibly can, even with that impediment in between your teeth. Then take the impediment out and notice how much more movement and space and physical dexterity there is in your mouth. All that is doing is forcing an impediment into what you're doing. And just like athletics, just like a sprinter running with a parachute behind them to increase the drag on them, or a swimmer practicing in the practice pool with extra baggy swim trunks to create drag on their body, just like those examples, you're using an impediment to force you to get more communication out of you. Try those 3 things. Heck, try me even if you don't relate to those struggles. They will still help your communication. And now that brings me back to you and your communication. The last thing I said I would talk about is your health and your future. If you take these 20 minutes and you learn something and you try it because of this, not only will you be helping you will be modeling these things for those around you, for those that you care about around you, and helping them slowly but surely have a model of what good looks like to be a stronger and stronger communicator. If communication is the activity of one person affecting the other person in some way, the better you make your communication, it demands the person you're speaking to increases theirs as well. And it's not just good for them. It's not just good for your local community around you. It's good for your health too. That physical process I talked about, of breathing in, of using your body in specific ways to get sound out and turn that sound into language, just like any other physical activity, the more you stretch, the more you do it, the more you use your body in a big and full and released way, your blood starts to flow more, more oxygen gets in the system, your metabolism kicks in, there's more blood flow to your brain actually gets a new pump of energy and vitality each time your heart beats, that oxygen-rich blood through your entire system. It's good for your health. It's a daily way, just like avoiding sitting all day long or being mindful about little meditation breaks. It is a daily way for you to improve your health, to make you feel better every single day. So I urge you to take these 20 minutes in which you just learn something, hopefully very concrete, act on it, use it, and feel and communicate better right this very minute. See ya.